Welcome into Sportsmemo's betting podcast for July 12th. It's Friday. Happy Friday out there. We got Robbie Vino on today's podcast breaking down the Friday night card MLB games. Robbie, welcome into the podcast. How are you?
I am good today, Drew. We were just talking about how it's almost like a vacation every year, All-Star break, 3 or 4 days off. Not that we use them entirely as days off, but they are days where we don't have anything to actually look at from a betting standpoint where baseball or any of the major sports are concerned. And today becomes back to the grind for a period of time that will run from now through, I would say, NCAA March Madness, and then you can tack on the NBA playoffs. But this is going to become the busy time for us. So we were glad to have a few days to sit back and go over some other stuff and maybe take a little bit of relaxation before we get heavy into this now.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty exciting All-Star game, and in the Home Run Derby as well. I thought that was a heck of a show that MLB put on. So, yeah, good stuff. Nice couple days away, but we're back at it. Hopefully finding some winners on tonight's card, Robbie. We got a 6:05 Eastern start here. Teams jockeying for, second place in the NL East here behind the Atlanta Braves as it come down the stretch. We're talking the Washington Nationals at the Philadelphia Phillies here. Pivetta going for the Phillies. Strasburg on the hill for the Nats, and he's commanding about a minus 140 price tag now. Been bought up about 15 cents. Open about minus 125, the Nationals on the road. Now we're seeing around minus 140, even as high as minus 148 now, the Nationals laying on the road. Total of 9.5, Robbie.
Yeah, and it's quite a run by the Washington Nationals, Drew, because I think many of us, I include myself in that pack of people who kind of wrote them off about a month and a half ago.
28-11 now?
28-11, best record in Major League Baseball since late May, and certainly a team that, despite the personnel losses from last year's team to this year's team, a team that still has a really solid lineup and a team whose frontline pitching would be feared in any playoff series. When you can march out three guys like Scherzer, Strasburg, and Patrick Corbin, you're going to have a shot. We know the bullpen has been horrible for them, and it's gotten, it hasn't been good, Drew, but it's been a little better than horrible, which has gotten them some victories. I know Sean Doolittle, certainly a far better closer historically than what he's shown so far this year. You almost expect a bit of a bounce back from this team as they regroup for the second half in the position that they're in, which, as you say, is a great position, tied for second place and right in the thick of things where NL wild cards are concerned. And Washington not even using that as their goal. They think they can win this division. They can overtake the Braves. So here we go. Big series between two teams. Be interesting to see what both of these do between now and the 31st trade deadline. But if we go to the starting pitching here real quick, I think that Steven Strasburg has some really interesting splits. Left-handed hitters have done they've done zero damage against Strasburg all season long. 166 batting average against, 243 on base percentage if you're lefty against Strasburg, 296 slugging, makes for a very weak 539 OPS. The Phils, however, don't march a lot of left-handed bats up to the plate in their lineup. 8 position players, really only Bryce Harper and Jay Bruce are the two lefties. You've got a couple of switch hitters in there, but they can put 6 righties. Still, I think Strasburg, the Phils have been 6-1 in his last 7 starts, has shown to be or come back to the form that we expect of him, while Nick Pivetta has been an absolute disaster over his last 4 starts, 23 and a third innings pitched, 29 hits, giving up 9 home runs. How about, he's thrown during that stretch, Drew, 23 and a third innings, and given up, if you count walks as a base allowed, he's given up 70 total bases in 23 and a third innings. That's a monstrous number. Like I said, Washington's still got a very formidable lineup that can come at Pivetta. These two guys, as far as head-to-head matchups against the respective teams, they've done it once each this year. It was way back in April. Philadelphia got the better part of Steven Strasburg, 4 innings pitched. They got 6 hits, 6 runs off of him. And for Nick Pivetta, he threw the next day on April 10th, and Washington got the best of him, 3 2/3, 7 earned runs. So neither of these guys had success back in April. But I think Strasburg has certainly righted the ship, as have the Nationals, where the Phillies living here locally, is still in a bit of turmoil right now, and certainly looking forward. The fan base is at least looking forward to some potential moves that this team might make to try and win that division. To start the year, this was a very, very cocky fan base as far as NL East expectations and NL championship expectations were concerned. And now they're a little bit resigned to the fact that they're an average team. So things have changed for the Phils. We'll see how the second half opens up. But I'd give an edge here to Steven Strasburg, certainly starting pitching. And if that bullpen, which is rested now, can do the job behind him, should be pretty good. Yeah,
great breakdown, Robbie. And as we see here, what the two teams are within a half a game here in the NL East, about 6 games back from the Braves. Also, both teams, if you've been betting them, they've both been money losers over the full season. So kind of a little bit under what expectations were in the beginning. But you had some great finds there. Strasburg versus lefties, 539 OPS. I'm trying to figure out why. Strasburg, a power pitcher. What is his changeup? One of his best pitches, Robbie?
Yeah, it's crazy, right? It's like a reverse split. You would expect righties to have trouble with right-handed throwers. Instead, he does much better. He does good against everybody, but he does much better against left-handed batters this year because of his ability to work the corners of the plate. So, for the Phils, I think we throw that out there, Drew, and it's, guys like you and I, for us to keep in mind when Steven Strasburg down the road faces left-hand dominated lineups, should be very, very good to put to use in those situations. But even where righties are concerned, the OPS is only 680 against him, so it's not like righties are exactly banging him around. But his pitch repertoire certainly has led him to silencing left-handed bats this year, and we'll see if Harper and Bruce, who are really the two of the biggest thumpers in that lineup. I know we can include Realmuto, but other than that, a lot of good hitters, but not exactly power hitters. So we'll see if Strasburg can keep them in the park tonight.
And the other stat that I thought was great, you said Pivetta 70 total bases in about 20 innings? Was that
23 and a third innings? I mean, that's 3 bases allowed an inning. That's crazy. You can't get away with that stuff, and he has. And that's over the course of the last 4 starts. His last 4 starts span 23 and a third. But total bases is a statistic that doesn't count walks. I do count them in there when I do them. So if you add the walks in with the total bases that he's given up on hits, 70 in 23 and a third, that's not going to get you real far. And if that Philly bullpen gets into action too soon, we've seen what a circus that one can be. I talked about Washington's poor performance relief corps wise earlier, but the Phils, it could be even worse. I know that overall numbers don't indicate it, but the Phils have real trouble inside that bullpen. They're thankful Tommy Hunter's back in there now to at least stabilize 1 inning on the back end.
Man, that proprietary stat there, total bases with walks. Any stat that doesn't add walks, that's not a stat I want to look at. I like that you add in walks there, Robbie. So it's 70 total bases with walks in 23.1 innings. That's not very good, and it shows. His home ERA, Robbie, is almost 6. So he's at home tonight going against that Washington lineup. You can see why the move here, about 20 cents now towards the Washington Nationals. For me, it'd be Nationals or pass. We'll move down the line here. 907, 908. We got the San Francisco Giants at the Milwaukee Brewers. Battle of the Andersons here. Both righty pitchers on the hill for each team. Looks like about minus 180, the prevailing number. That's the Brewers laying at home. Another 9.5 total here in the National League, Robbie.
Yeah, this is one that I can't explain this season, Drew. And I swear to God, every time Chase Anderson throws, I have the same reaction this year. But the betting, and I'm talking about right off the openers, sharps, they love Chase Anderson. You don't see a game where Chase Anderson gets bet the other way. They bet him up, they bet him up, they bet him up, and I can't figure out for the life of me why. I've gotten caught in that trap once or twice this season trying to justify that particular line move toward him. The team is 6-6 in his 12 starts, so nobody's making money betting Chase Anderson right now. There's some really crazy things. We just talked about how Strasburg, a right-hander, nullifies left-handed bats. The same goes for Chase Anderson. Chase Anderson against lefties this year, only allowing a 174 batting average, 239 on base, 314 slugging. That comes to 553 OPS, which is right in line with the dominance of Strasburg at 539 OPS against lefties. Both these guys very good against lefties. The difference is Chase Anderson has been slammed by right-handed hitters. Righties hitting 312 off of him, 383 on base percentage. How about a 934 OPS for right-handed hitters against Chase Anderson? And yet the markets just bet this guy as if it's an automatic win. I don't understand it. You wouldn't catch me laying at this type of price with him. They could win the game, Milwaukee, sure, I get it, but you won't find me backing Chase Anderson. I think that another really good thing to point out here with this guy is 12 starts, and in 11 of those, he hasn't even thrown 6 innings. So 11 times out of 12, this guy hasn't made it through 6 innings yet. People insist on betting him up, and up. I say it's a head scratcher for me. It's been that way all season long. Chase Anderson's been in the league long enough now to know that he is what he is. I don't think he's going to make a Charlie Morton type turnaround in his career. Maybe he will, but certainly I don't find that happening tonight. Giants are a poor hitting team. Let's face it. We could run down the numbers. We won't list them all, but we know that the Giants are in the bottom third, just about every offensive statistical category there is. They have picked it up as of late. The last couple of weeks before the All-Star break, the Giants had hit the ball a little bit better, but still an extremely poor hitting team. So I do understand it from that aspect. But for me, playing this guy and with the numbers that he's produced, I just don't understand how he gets to be a $1.88 favorite. Could be a lot of the could be some fade Sean Anderson money as well. Milwaukee's lineup, certainly the dominant lineup here in Milwaukee at home, a very good home OPS team. But for me, the price too high, and I just can't get over the phenomena of Chase Anderson. The fact that people just love to bet a guy who can't even throw 6 innings a start.
Yeah, I mean, and that discrepancy in lefty-righty team OPS against is pretty alarming there. Do you think San Francisco will take advantage of that in their lineup construction?
They do have some righties that can do, and they're not a power hitting team, obviously, but they can load up with right-handers. So the discrepancy that you point to, Drew, if we just do a differential between the OPS allowed by Chase Anderson against lefties and the OPS allowed by Chase Anderson against righties, is 381. That's huge. It's almost
that's
400 points difference.
That's got to be one of the most in the major leagues.
If you're
starters,
a basic, anyway. And if you're a basic right-handed singles hitter, you want to get up against Chase Anderson. So I think San Fran probably could. I looked a little bit toward over, thinking maybe Milwaukee hits Sean Anderson, and in turn San Francisco gets their piece of Chase Anderson. He's gotten away with a lot of stuff this year, Drew, because in most of his outings he hasn't been slammed for a lot of runs. There's only 2 starts this year where he's given up more than 4 runs. So 10 times he's allowed less than 4 runs. However, as I said earlier, this guy doesn't go 6 innings, so it's all relative, right? You throw shorter, you give up less. I don't know. I can't understand the reasoning behind playing Chase Anderson constantly and just betting him up, but that's the way it's gone all year long for bettors, and we'll see if it happens. I'd much rather take a flyer on San Francisco with 6 or 7 right-handed hitters in a lineup against this guy tonight. Yeah,
me too. I mean, I'm not looking to lay minus 180 with that discrepancy like you talked about. Good stuff, Robbie, so far through 2 games here. Robbie, with the 3 days, 4 days off here, and the odds makers, it was shown, with the CFL, we really saw it. The CFL lines would be out on Monday afternoon, Tuesday morning. This week, man, they weren't out until day of the game, the day of the first game. Whatever's going down, in Costa Rica, just the lines makers not really at their desks, I guess, this week, kind of taking off to the beach or whatnot. And with MLB, it's obvious. Like, you've put in the work. I've put in a bunch of hours on today's card. This is a great day to bet, huh?
Yeah, no, we do. We get a lot of time. If baseball allowed us, Drew, 2 days, 3 days between games to break down a 15-game card, you could break it down to, and sometimes baseball's a lot of overthinking. I catch myself engulfed in some of these statistics too much. Sometimes it can be simple, but like you say, the more time to prep, like you get with a football week, you get a full week to isolate and analyze games. It's almost what we had here. So this becomes a pretty good day, I think, coming out of the break. If you know which direction teams are headed and you have some kind of feel. Certainly all of us like to project what we think will happen in the second half. A lot of different ideas out there, but this becomes a pretty good day to get back into the grind and see if we can start off the second half on a real good note.
Yeah, should be a pretty good day here. Pretty good weekend just with getting ahead here, coming out of the break. Good time to make money. And guys, we do have a special promo code for the podcast, 3-day all access with any handicapper. Rob Vino being a great choice for just $29, less than $10 a day, get you through the weekend. Use the coupon code ROBV, that's ROBV, for 3-day all access. Any handicapper on the board, it will work, but the coupon code is ROBV when checking out. So $29 there for 3-day all access, get you all the way through the weekend. Great weekend to bet here on the MLB slate. We're going down rotation number, but wanting to leave the Atlanta San Diego game last, Robbie, if that's all right, because it's a 10:10 Eastern start, so we got the quote-unquote degenerate special going last. So we'll go Tampa Bay at Baltimore in the AL East up next, 7:05 Eastern start here. Chirinos versus Dylan Bundy, 9.5 being the total. Looks like about minus 160, the prevailing number for the Rays on the road in Camden Yards tonight.
Yeah, they've gotten a little bit of bump in the price over the course of the last, let's say, 90 minutes or so. The line pretty much held steady since the opener of last night, but now we see some reaction to the Tampa Bay side. And I find this one interesting, Drew, and it's why we're going to talk about it, because Yandy Chirinos, starting pitcher for the Tampa Bay Rays. Tampa Bay's 0-5 in his last 5 starts, which would lead you to believe he's horrible. They're 0-5 in his last 5 starts, and they're also 1-5 under the total, so 5 unders, 1 over in his last 6 starts. So against Chirinos and on the under, that combination parlay has paid off pretty well over the course of his last 6 starts. However, those last 6 starts have all been quality efforts from Chirinos. So he's thrown the ball extremely well. He's gotten 0 run support, and a lot of times, we have to look beyond these records of pitchers and teams with pitchers on the mound and just see if they are victims of run support or if they're beneficiaries in some cases of run support. For Chirinos, it's been a situation where he just not has had any runs scored for him. Certainly no problem with the way he's thrown the baseball over the course of his last 6 starts. And facing Baltimore, a team that, overall, statistically a poor offense, but they've certainly had their moments where they can score. Chirinos has faced them once already this year. He went 7 1/3, allowed 7 hits, only 3 runs, 8 base runners total, only had 1 walk in that game, and he lost. So that goes to show you that this guy is thrown real well, but with poor support behind him. If we look at Dylan Bundy, the other side of the equation here, he's had a couple of starts against Tampa Bay this year, and for as poor as Dylan Bundy's numbers are overall, they've been excellent against Tampa Bay. Dylan Bundy, 2 starts against the Rays, 12 1/3 innings pitched, only 6 hits, only 9 base runners allowed, and only to get back to the total base number, only 15 total bases allowed against this team. 2.19 ERA, 0.73 WHIP. So he's thrown very well, which led me immediately to look at the under in this game. Both of these starting pitchers seem to have real good advantages against the opposing offenses here. Some of the problem you'll run into at this time of year, and it's been a problem regardless all season long in Major League Baseball, trying to bet unders, the way the ball is flying out of ballparks across the country. But when you get this hot, humid weather that we have almost everywhere right now, balls tend to fly. And when you're in a bandbox like Camden Yards, sometimes totals can dissipate real quick. But I think this might be a good under look here, Drew. Like I say, Bundy has had the Rays number. The Rays lineup hasn't changed significantly from the 2 times he pitched against them, April 16th and May the 4th. Still basically the same lineup, so he's familiar with these guys, and he's handled them very, very well twice. And Chirinos, like I say, he's pitching real well. don't, be or don't gravitate toward that 0-5 over the last 5 starts, the Rays results, because just not indicative of the way he's pitched. I kind of like under in that game right there. I think you're staring at, what we're looking at, 9.5, I think, in that game. And for me, that would be a pretty good play under 9.5. It could get away from you because it's Camden Yards. I get it. And Bundy's a home run waiting to happen in a lot of instances, but it just hasn't been the case against this Tampa Bay lineup so far this year.
Yeah, great stats there, Robbie. And you bring up, the under in the ball flying out. There's no doubt about it. We've seen it. We've seen it in the AAA numbers, especially using the ball that they're using in the Major League now and how much their home runs. There's definitely something there. But what about just philosophy-wise here, betting, especially today and tomorrow, going from Sunday to now Friday with most of these guys, no game time at bats. Do you think that favors the under, and add on top of that extra rest for the starting pitchers and the bullpen?
Yeah, and that, it always comes to 20/20 hindsight, right, Drew? I mean, if a game goes 10-8, the offenses were rested and ready to roll. If a game goes 2-1, the offenses were rusty because they had 4 days. It's so hard to blanket statement or philosophically come up with a plan. They're all so situational and so individual based. It is hard to tell. I will say this. We saw something last night with the Houston Astros that I've tried to apply in the past, and that I think for the better part, without having statistical data in front of me, I think for the better part, it'll win you money more than 50% of the time, is when these teams march multiple All-Stars to the All-Star game, their first game back. We saw Houston's offense just go stagnant last night. Now, Lance Lynn's been real good all season long, and he was dominant last night. But Houston, with Springer, with Bregman, with Brantley, and all these guys in the All-Star game, they just didn't look like they were ready to play last night. So there's times where I'll look for teams that have marched or had a cluster of players in the All-Star game. They had to travel to Cleveland. Now they have to travel back to whatever city they're playing in. So if you look for teams like that, you might find it first night out. We found it last night with Houston because they get shut out and lose Alex Bregman in the midst of all that, right? He gets hit in the chin with a bad hop grounder, which didn't look good. So he'll be out of the lineup tonight. But that's probably, to your question, the angle that I would come at it from, or have come at it from over the years.
Interesting. Okay, I really haven't thought of that scenario. Are there other teams you can think of that fit that profile? What, the Yankees? Maybe I'm thinking big name teams here that got a lot of votes.
The Dodgers put a lot of guys in the All-Star game, right? 3 pitchers, position play. I know Jock Peterson was in the home run derby. Bellinger played in the game itself. I'm not sure how many Milwaukee. There were a lot of Chicago Cubs, if I remember right, in that game. They play this afternoon against the Pirates. So, if you can find those teams, maybe 4 position players that have gone through the extra travel of the All-Star game, then sometimes you can find them in a bit of a slump the first day out.
Good stuff, Robbie. And guys, remember the coupon code ROBV, that's ROBV, at checkout for any 3-day all-access pass on sportsmemo.com. Robbie Vino's a great choice. Any handicapper up there, the coupon code will work. Coupon code ROBV at checkout, just $29 for the 3-day all-access. Let's talk another one here. Dodgers, Red Sox, interleague action. Maeda versus Rodriguez. Looks like 10.5 being the total in Fenway. Minus 115, Boston laying at home, Robbie.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this one because I think 2 of the most dominant in-season trends for a starting pitcher that I have found this year come from Eduardo Rodriguez of the Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox are 13-3 in his last 16 starts. They're 13-5 overall in his starts. Lost his first 2 of the season. They've been on a binge ever since. 13-3 is a huge ticket cashing profitability rate. And on top of that, he's had 18 starts, and the Red Sox are 15-3 over the total in Rodriguez's starts. And it's due to both sides. When you go through the numbers, I mean, Rodriguez hasn't been great, and the offense has supported him. So tonight you're looking at a number of 10.5. Which would seem high, but again, it's Fenway Park. It's 2 great offenses. It's a pitcher who's had his games going over the total at a rapid rate. And if we throw Kenta Maeda into the mix, Kenta Maeda's had 8 road starts. He hasn't had a quality start in any of those 8. By definition, 6 innings pitched, 3 earned runs allowed, 0 quality starts in 8 tries on the road for Kenta Maeda. He's completed 6 innings 1 time in those 8 starts. And against a Boston lineup that's dominant against righties, they're amongst the tops, the elite offenses in Major League Baseball against right-handed pitching. And you can see where the 10.5 comes from. I mean, I know that in Fenway Park with Boston, the baseline is probably already 9.5, 10 for a Red Sox game. But you start throwing in these types of numbers and trends, and you could see where 10.5 might be worth taking here. Again, it's hard, Drew, first game of a series to run in with totals real early. You can bet them, of course, and we do. But when you don't know which home plate umpire is behind the plate, like you don't for first games of a series until maybe about an hour before the contest starts, it's a little difficult. You could run in and bet over and get the most under umpire in the league behind the plate and maybe have to come back and hedge a little bit. But I think just off of the numbers offensively put up by both of these teams, the numbers indicated by both of these pitchers, Maeda's away struggles and Rodriguez's tendency to get these games over the total, I think that 10.5 is certainly worth a play here. It's been just stagnant all day long at that 10.5 number. We see a cut one place. I think Pinnacle has now. They're showing under -111, and other places that are showing over -15. So you get a little bit of variance. But I would probably take my chances with a 6-5 game between the Dodgers and the Red Sox inside Fenway Park with these two guys on the hill.
Yeah, and what about the side? I mean, would you use what we were just talking about, that profile of teams with a lot of all-stars, and especially heading back up on the road to Boston? Would you look to fade the Dodgers?
Yeah, you certainly could. I mean, it's a lot of travel for those 4 or 5 Dodgers that were in the All-Star game. The problem with that theory with L.A. is the fact that 3 of them were pitchers that aren't going to have any part in this game. Right. Clayton Kershaw will have no role. Ryu will have no role, and Walker Buehler will have no role in the game. Only a couple of position players we're talking about, Peterson and Cody Bellinger. So it doesn't exactly apply there. But still, there's travel for those 2 guys. And Rodriguez is sometimes, as we talked about earlier in the podcast, Drew, sometimes pitchers are just lucky pitchers on given years where the offense really comes to support them. And the fact that the Red Sox are 13-3 in Rodriguez's last 16 starts, and when you look at his overall numbers, he hasn't been stellar by any stretch of the imagination, but still they're winning games for him. Just goes to show you that he's been on the lucky side of it, and maybe that luck continues. They score runs. Dodgers certainly can score some runs. They're not the best against lefties. They're better against right-handed pitching, but the Dodgers still a top-flight offense against whoever's throwing.
Robbie, great podcast so far. 3-day all-access, guys. Using coupon code ROBV at checkout gives it to you for less than $10 a day, just $29, 3-day all-access pass on sportsmemo.com. Let's talk the last game here, Robbie. You know, we're talking baseball, so Degenerate Special really doesn't work like it does in college football or college basketball, man. But we'll talk it anyway. Late night action here. Atlanta Braves, San Diego Padres in Petco Park, 10:10 Eastern, 7:10 Pacific, first pitch. Keuchel versus Lamet. Looks like total of 9 in Petco. High total here for Petco Park. Pretty much a pick-em price, though. Each way looks like -104 you can find. You can find it as high as actually about -110. But either way, I mean, it's pretty much pick the winner here. Braves at Pods.
Let me ask you a question off the network real quick here, Drew, because you're my authority on this.
I shouldn't be the authority to anybody, Robbie.
Those weekend UFC matches that go off at like 12:40 in the morning East Coast time, sure. Are they Degenerate Specials, the final match of the night?
No. I think a main event card cannot be called a Degenerate Special, no.
Okay. So they don't make the list. They're not in the class of a Hawaii football game. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I'm talking San Jose State versus what? Boise State doesn't even really qualify. I like the, San Jose State versus, Hawaii late night special. That's perfect, man. That's the Degenerate Special, 11 p.m. Eastern start. That's where it's at. Not UFC, the main event. I don't think that qualifies as much. All
right, no get back game there. But the Braves and San Diego, again, late start tonight, 10:10 Eastern, 7:10 Pacific. Talk about this for a couple of reasons, and we're going to start with Dallas Keuchel, who, again, we're going to talk about pitcher splits in this case. And Dallas Keuchel's been extremely strong against left-handed bats since he was signed and come up from his sort of spring training in the minors and started to throw for the Braves. Braves are 4-0 under the total in his 4 starts. So 4 consecutive unders with him on the hill. Short, small little slice of info there, but certainly it seems to be trending toward under for Keuchel, a ground ball specialist. Well, let's run through his splits here real quick. Against left-handed hitters, he's allowing a 176 batting average against, 222 on base, exceptional, 412 slugging, 634 OPS, not quite in that Strasburg, Chase Anderson mold, but lefty on lefty, very tough to hit Dallas Keuchel, especially trying to lift the ball in the air. He's such a ground ball specialist. However, again, we see a big difference between what he does against lefties and what he does against righties. Righties are hitting 284 against him. That's 108 points better. They're on base at a 341 clip, which is 119 points better. They have an 810 OPS, which is 176 points better. Right-handed hitters. Key to this whole thing, and we see a lot of movement on San Diego today. San Diego, actually, favorites have been reversed here. Atlanta opened as the favorite, San Diego now the favorite. But San Diego won't even march a left-handed hitter up to the plate other than Eric Hosmer in tonight's lineup. You'll see 7 righties with some pop. Fernando Tatis, Manny Machado, Franmil Reyes, Hunter Renfroe, all these guys for San Diego that can hit the baseball. And an 810 OPS against right-handed hitters, this is not an ideal matchup for Dallas Keuchel. He's been good, and I'd love to play him. I played him his last start because we're starting to see him go back to his old form. But in this situation against a right-hand dominated lineup that can hit for power, I don't know if he would be a good selection here. Now, Dilson Lamet pitched for, what was it, like the first time in 2 years, right? I think he had Tommy John, and he threw against the Dodgers in his last outing, and actually did his first outing of the season, and he pitched real well in that game. He's got
electric stuff.
He really does. I mean, the 5 innings, 3 hits allowed, 7 Ks show you that, that was an opening start. I think things can get better for him here. Atlanta's a really difficult lineup, but still, and compared to what Keuchel's going to have to go up against, I think he might have a slight advantage for the first 5 innings. Then we get into bullpens, where certainly San Diego rates as a better bullpen. Anytime you can bring Stammen and Kirby Yates against whatever Atlanta's bringing, it's going to be better. And San Diego may be able to get a couple of these balls out of the park here. Dallas Keuchel allowed 3 home runs in his first 2 starts, hasn't allowed one since those 2 games against Philly and Miami. However, like I say, San Diego with an awful lot of pop, extra base pop for that matter, in that lineup. So I like the matchup here, San Diego's right-handers against Dallas Keuchel throwing. The total probably got a bit too high because that was a consideration as well, thinking that the right-handed hitters of San Diego should be able to score some runs off of Keuchel and then get into the bullpen. And then on the other side, Atlanta's lineup being so tough, as good as Lamet pitched against the Dodgers, he still gave up 3 runs, and Atlanta has that capability. 8.5 looked like a good number early. We see 9s now. I don't know if that number's as good to go ahead and play over, but I think the line move here was pretty sharp, looked into these matchups, and came up with San Diego, and I think that's probably the right side.
Robbie, great breakdowns, man. Breaking it all the way down to the Atlanta-San Diego matchup late in the night. Man, good information, good MLB betting information for tonight's slate. And guys, you can get Robbie Vino's service for under $10 a day, just $29 for his 3-day all access using the coupon code ROBV at checkout. That's ROBV at checkout. Robbie, is there anything else you want to throw out to the listeners before we shut this down?
Yeah, real quick, for anybody listening, if you want to see a pitching breakdown of all 15 games, by all means, go ahead to sportsmemo.com. We've got an article up there that breaks down all 15 games from a pitching perspective. Tonight's starters, not necessarily a hitting perspective. Just gives you kind of an insight to we like to provide knowledgeable content here. Hopefully when you're listening, you learn something you didn't know before you turned on the podcast. And it's nice at times to go ahead, Drew, and at least show the listeners that as professionals in this business, as handicappers and bettors of our own money, what we go through and what we're looking at when we go ahead and play these games. These aren't things where we just look at the schedule and that team stinks, that team's good, and we play them. Sometimes it's nice to let people see how far we break these things down. And certainly if you go to sportsmemo.com into our news section, you can see an article, and it takes some stuff on the other 10 games for yourself because it's all there for tonight's action.
Robbie, good stuff. Follow him on Twitter at RobVinoSports. We'll be back next week, guys, on Monday, breaking down some college football, so stay tuned. Have a fun, safe weekend. Best of luck with your bets, and we'll talk on Monday.